Hanukkah Sameach. So when it comes to the Nisim of Hanukkah, Hanukkah sort of refuses to stay in a single lane, right? It presents us with two very different miracles. There's the miracle on the battlefield against the Yevonim, the nace of the Milchama, and then there's the spiritual nace of the lasting of the oils of the Shemen in the Beis HaMikdash with the menorah that lasted eight days when really there was only enough Shemen for one. So we're given two different nisim, but we're given multiple ways to respond to those nisim. There's three unique commemorative positive acts that we are mechuyav individually to perform during the days of Hanukkah. There is the remembering of the victory in the words of the Al Hanisim that we recite in our tefillos and in our benching. There's the reenactment of the miracle of the Shemen through the lighting of the Chanukiah. And on top of both, there is the recitation of the words of Hallel as an independent form of saying thanks for the Yeshua to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But have you ever noticed that there's something totally strange? None of these individual acts of commemoration explicitly refer to both of the nisim of the story. And the question is why? Famously, the oil lasts 8 days and there's only enough for one. So on the days of the Chag of Hanukkah that we celebrate, Chazal gave us a mitzvah to commemorate that nace by lighting the Chanukiahs in our homes for 8 straight days. But yet, this nace, as great as it is entirely omitted from the text of the Al Hanisim. There in the Al Hanisim, we find that there's a description of the miraculous victory of the Maccabees over the Yevonim, the Yevonim who tried to make our nation forget our Torah, and they impeded us from being able to carry out our mitzvos. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu handed this strong nation into us, the hands of the weak. Right? They gave the many into the hands of the few. But we find no mention of this tremendous nace of the Shemen, and in fact, the text of the Al Hanisim describes the miraculous nature of the war, and only after reframing all of it as a miracle, right? And taking it away from strategy and human engineering and into the sort of domain of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Afterwards, the only mention of the Beis HaMikdash is and the oil, it says, V'achar kain ba'u v'nech le'vir beitecha, that afterwards the Jewish people came into the Beis HaMikdash, cleansed it, and started using it for our mitzvah purposes. There's no reference to the miracles that took place inside the Beis HaMikdash itself, but only of the war. However, when we turn to the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah, of actually lighting the candles, and we do the brachos that accompany it, we encounter a sharp shift in emphasis. There's no mention whatsoever within the brachos of the nace of the Milchama. The focus is exclusively on the nace of the Shemen, the lights that burn beyond their natural capacity. More than a verbal commemoration, the mitzvah itself is a reenactment. We are relighting in miniature the menorah of the Beis HaMikdash as part of the experience. But it sharpens the question. If Chazal regarded the nace of the Milchama as so central that they established the entire Al Hanisim text to highlight it and to put it into a framework of HaKadosh Baruch Hu dictating the result of the Milchama, why does the mitzvah of lighting the Neros, which only happened as a result of us being able to take back the Beis HaMikdash, why are the accompanying blessings? Why is there no reference to the miraculous nature in the accompanying blessings? There's no reference to the miraculous nature of the war, at least not in the text that is me'akev, that is necessary to recite for the purposes of performing the mitzvah. And it's interesting to note that whereas the Al Hanisim, the purpose was to reframe the story in sort of the meta spiritual context of that war, when it comes to the Neros, the purpose is to publicize the miracle itself. So it's not so much of us educating us about the fact that a miracle took place, in as much as it is about publicizing that miracle took place by placing the Chanukiahs near the window where people are passing by and doing it at a certain time that everybody is gathering and sort of becoming more aware of this nace. It's about the publicity. And then lastly, we come to this practice of Hallel that strikingly tells neither story. It doesn't recount any miracle of the Shemin, nor of the Milchama. It employs the same language of praise and thanksgiving that we recite on every Yontiv. But even that in and of itself is instructive. Hallel is not a narrative commemoration at all. It's a response. It's the language of recognizing that there was a Yeshua and that we have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the fact that occurred. But what's fascinating is not just that the text doesn't mention either of these miracles, but more importantly, it's when we discuss why we're mechuyev to say Hallel in the first place, Chazal don't bring up the nisim as well. The Gemara in Erchin on Daf Yud brings the following argument to support the practice of reciting Hallel for all 8 days. It's according to the Gemara, when there's a danger to the entirety of Klal Yisrael, that danger takes place in Eretz Yisrael, and there's a miraculous saving from that danger. Those who were saved are required midoraisa to say Hallel, and we say it midarabanan. So contrary to the Hallel of Sukkot, that is a song that we say to sort of celebrate the giving of a korban, this Hallel is a shira. It is a reaction of thanksgiving for being saved from certain death. We can therefore say that the recitation of Hallel is not meant to celebrate the military victory, or really even the lasting of the lights, but rather the basic escape from physical danger that Klal Yisrael was blessed with in their war against the Yevonim. It was our ability to survive as a nation and to survive the national existential threat that was underwritten, that Yeshua was underwritten by HaKadosh Baruch Hu and must be recognized as such. So the question remains, why do we need this 3-part framework, right? Why do we need an Al HaNisim that fulfills a Chiyuv Hodah? Why do we need a Hadlakas Neros that fulfills a Chiyuv Pirsumei Nisa? And why do we need a Hallel that is a Shira Al Hatzala? Why do we need each of these 3 elements to essentially give us the ultimate reaction that we want, which is thanksgiving for these incredible miracles and victories? I think each element can be characterized as such. There is the physical reenactment of what occurred in the Beis HaMikdash. There's the intellectual reframing of the narrative in Al HaNisim from a human-engineered victory in war to a HaKadosh Baruch Hu driven one. And there's the emotional response, the shira, the thankfulness that emerges, right? Hanukkah may be a trifecta of avoda, and it reflects sort of the dual nature of the miracles, right? One being spiritual, one being physical, but it ultimately resolves into one unified response, and that's Hallel. The culmination in Hallel, where the particulars fall away, and the holiday finds itself with one voice, that the miracle of the victory in the war and the miracle of the oil are not separate narratives, but they're facets of a single truth, that the continued existence of Klal Yisrael in body and in soul is sustained primarily and solely by HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his miracles. What begins as dual remembrances ultimately resolves in one song of emotional praise. Hanukkah Sameach.